Good morning, everybody. I'm Katie Greenleaf Martin, and I'm the Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Integrated Library System, and I am here to welcome you today to our annual users group event, the big event, as I call it sometimes. So I'm thrilled to have my staff here and board members and representatives from our user group committees. And what I want to do first is to kind of go through some things that we've been doing. I'm going to review the PAL's strategic priorities, talk a little bit about some of the big picture things that we're thinking about, and then just touch really briefly on some current exciting projects that we have. If you want to know any more of these, more about these, or you think that it would be good for your library, just let us know, send us an email. I'm gonna just hit them really fast today to give you guys some updates. And then we will move on to our main event for today, which is our panel discussion, improving tracking and visibility of library collections using some various features in Evergreen and ChiliPack. So we have some fantastic panelists joining us, and so I'm sure we'll have lots to talk about, and we'd love to hear your questions, your things that you're interested in tracking or improving visibility of. So we'll spend as much time as we can on that part of the presentation. As always, I want to remind everyone that we could not do the work that we do without your support as member libraries, as well as the support of funds from the Library Services and Technology Act, which are allocated, granted to us through the Office of Commonwealth Libraries, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So we're always appreciative of that support. So just some fast facts. This is in our annual update, which I know that I sent out, and I'll put it in the links for today. But we always like to see, like the big circ numbers and stuff like that. So 66,000 new patrons in 2022, almost 6 million circulations. So it's really cool for me to see the sum total of everything that our consortium is doing. And then I love our member map, and I included with it the breakdown of the various types of organizations that we have, because we've got federated systems, we've got consolidated systems, we have independent libraries, branches, school libraries. Our special libraries include a medical library, a correctional facility, and historical societies. So just a really great diversity of types of libraries in our consortium. And of course, today we are showcasing our user group. And I know that you all probably know this, but they did an updated charter this year. And it just kind of adjusts the officer positions a little bit, as well as making sure that everything is consistent with how things are in the PALS bylaws. Those of you who are involved in PALA remember some similar reorganizations in PALA for the units, chapters, and divisions. And I am thrilled that Vince Giordano will be continuing on as chair for the rest of the 23-24 cycle. So he was just reelected. Yay, Vince. And Heather Linsgold will be joining the user group board as the chair-elect, and then she will move into the chair position next year. And we will then at that point be looking for a new chair-elect. So excited to have that going on. And thank you all for nominating, voting, and participating in those various activities. Something that I just always like to talk about, and I have been using this slide to do it, is that for us, for my team and for the board and for all of you, we get very technical with the ILS and with the different things that it does, but it's all about improving and expanding library service. And so I'm going to go through some of our projects that we're doing, but just as a reminder that is the ultimate why. And on that note, the strategic priorities and you'll see these themes are consistent from our last strategic plan, but we're kind of moving on with the goals, moving on up. looking at growing our membership in a way that enhances possibilities for resource sharing for other types of activities, talking about collaborating with other statewide organizations, going to have some more to say about that later, and really integrating ourselves into the library ecosystem. And then, building our own community from within, working with the user group and keeping up with all these different things that are happening in library services and making sure that we're supporting all the ways the libraries are serving their communities. So here's just a couple of our current projects that I want to touch on. Resource sharing, congratulations to the Northeast District, the Easton District, the Potter Tioga Library System, as well as Bedford and Somerset counties, all of whom are going live with brand new resource sharing projects between the middle of April and the end of May. So getting a bunch of those projects off the ground, really exciting, great collaborations between those libraries. As always, there's a lot of details in getting the policies figured out and stuff like that. But I'm thrilled to have a bunch of those projects that are now live, and we have created a process that we take libraries through in terms of negotiating the different things that you may or may not want to share, how you're going to do delivery, things like that. So anybody who's interested in sharing things with other libraries, let us know, and we can talk to you about how we kind of set that up. And again, working on some of the things that we can do in the software to be able to support the way that Pennsylvania libraries are set up and the way that it makes sense for Pennsylvania libraries to share items. And so I just love to show this photo of the Bedford van. I enjoy it. Looking forward to that. Project is kicking off before the end of the month. So excited to have, we've already had resource sharing between one location in Somerset and the rest of the Bedford locations. And then we're adding in the rest of the Somerset locations. So this is a situation where these libraries aren't in the same district. They're not in the same system. They were at a training together one day and they're like, our van routes are really close to each other. I bet we could work this out. So kudos to Cheryl and Matt for coming up with the idea, and we're thrilled to see that expanding. The other thing that we've been working on, and this is something that we are excited to offer to anyone who wants to do it. We've used a couple of pilot libraries to sort of work it out. Anybody who would like to incorporate some voter registration tie-ins to their card registration and update process, we have a couple ways to do that now. One of them, and this is the way that they do it in the big Evergreen Consortium in Georgia, is to use the surveys feature, which is part of the patron registration screen. So it prompts staff to ask patrons that they're either updating or creating if they are interested in creating or updating a voter registration. And then you'll either direct them to the online form. Many libraries then direct them to the paper form. So that is one way we can do it. You then have stats based on the response of like how many times people were asked and what their answers were. And then the other thing that we've been doing is to incorporate the links to the voter registration site. And we can do this. We can also, if you have, county dog registrations or water authority or other things that people need to do when they change an address, because so many of our library card registrations are people who've just moved. We can use this page that comes up after the person has filled out the request a library card form, and we can include custom text and links, and then we can also do buttons. So that's a nice way as well to be able to kind of offer people another opportunity to have access to that information about voter registration. So if that's something you'd like set up for your library, let us know. And there'll be lots more coming about this in the next 6 months or so, but we are excited that we already have the live holdings set up in Access PA so that you can see, instead of having quarterly updates, which are what we usually do, those holdings are being updated in real time. and requests are only being forwarded on particular items. If they're listed as available, it'll go ahead and skip you in the rota if your item is checked out. Then what we're going to be for final testing of this next week, and hopefully going to production with the first couple libraries sometime in the next few weeks, is to be able to have Evergreen and the Share It, which is the product that Access PA uses, actually talk to each other. So Share It will tell Evergreen what it's doing. So we will have once we have the proof of concept done on that one, that we've got it actually in implementation, we'll be looking for more libraries to go ahead and start doing that as well. So we're thrilled, and it's been a wonderful partnership with HSLC. Really excited about that. Okay, enough about me and the things that we have going on. I want to introduce our panelists. So we have with us today Nicole Heyer from the Pike County Public Library, Victoria Ryan Price from Scranton Public Library, and Heather Linsgold from the Blair County Library System / Altoona District. And they're all doing some really interesting things with various collection tracking and visibility topics. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to exit out of my slides, and I am going to kind of show some of these things live. And what I've done so far is created a list of the notes that I have with links to kind of set these things up. So I will put that in the chat for anyone to take a look at these so far, and then I'll add to it as we go, because I know that we'll come up with some things that I haven't thought about yet. So does anybody in particular want to start? I know, Victoria, I'm excited about hearing about some of the things that you're doing at Scranton. Is there anywhere that or questions from the field, just to give us a starting place?
I guess I could start talking.
I was
it's
gonna
like,
say,
it's like crickets. I'm like, I guess it's going to be me.
I will call on Heather if all else, if no one has questions too, because I know some of the things they're doing there from my previous tenure there. So yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So one of our big projects that we started doing was Library of Things for the Scranton Public Library. And it started with me looking, because there's a couple collections within Spark of Library of Things. And we kind of had it set it up when the items come to tech services. Ahead of time, I already have like a list of things to put in the record and the name, exactly how they want it called. I'm like, okay. So I just did the record. I'm like, la-di-da, done, and send it along. And what was happening was our circulation manager at the time, she's like, it's not really, she's like, you have to narrow so many things down to find your library of things. And I'm like, oh, I guess, because I don't work circulation. So I'm like, oh, I didn't really think of that before. So then I started brainstorming. I'm like, how can this become more searchable in the catalog? And I was like, just perusing subfields. And I'm like, well, I can't put it in the 650, even though that works like gangbusters. I'm like, it's not an authorized subject heading. And I'm like, it's not a series. I'm like, so I'm not going to put it in the 490. And then I'm like, what about the 500? And then I started this whole long project of poor Jonathan, like me, like bothering him, and then them asking Elizabeth. And so now I currently, for searchability with all our items that are in Library of Things, I put a 500 field of Library of Things, and that works very well for searchability in the OPAC for patrons to find them. And Elizabeth also set for us, we use the Library of Things shelving location and then circ modifiers realia. Seems to be working really well. And soon I'll be adding UPCs. We'll probably be putting in pictures also.
Ooh, yeah. So here, if we go to the advanced, you guys can see this, right? I'm not.
Yes.
I worry every once in a while. So here's their shelving location. So you can search within the shelving location, because it turns out that there are many books with library and things in the, in the title when I searched for it. And so we see then these all these various oh, you guys have like medical stuff as well as
Yeah, they're getting wild with the library of things. They have some awesome stuff in there.
Nice. And paper shredder, things you don't need all the time, right? So, and then we can see here the general note. Here's your library of things general note. So I think that is excellent. And I think, you know, while you can search by a shelving location, patrons don't always know that. So having the text in the note field too is really nice. And then if we look here at why I'm missing, we see Jonathan has done this kind of next step that you were talking about, Victoria, where he's added the custom images here to a bunch of their library of things. I think that the chicken one is my favorite. And so similarly, yeah, they have a shelving location, so you can see that set up there as well. So yeah, I love that. I just cataloged some gardening supplies that some of the libraries in Blair County are going to be circulating. And well, Victoria and Jonathan are awesome catalogers and do a great job. If you are not as deep into cataloging as they are, and you're not sure how to make a record for a flickin' chicken game or a soil thermometer or a paper shredder, feel free to either email the cataloging list or submit a ticket, and we're always happy to help out with those, because it is kind of a niche thing. So, okay, I want to make a note about mark notes. So use the...
It looked like you might want to say something. Jonathan, did you have something to add?
Yeah.
No, I was just kind of shaking my head in shame at the fact that cataloging a rubber chicken has gotten so much talk. I'm good.
Of all the
Thank you.
things to be known for.
I think it's fabulous, Jonathan.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yes, I love that. Other people who have library of things, items, are there other things that you have done that have been helpful, or cautionary tales that you may have about ways to have those be accessible in the catalog?
There's a question in the chat asking if the CERC policies for library of things is based on the shelving location.
We can do that. Is that how it's set up for you, Victoria? I don't remember.
Because we have the library things shelving location, and we have the Realia CERC modifier. So I'm not quite sure which one's attached to.
Well, and we can do the combination too.
Okay.
So yeah, so it just depends on how your library or library system wants to circulate them. We have them all over the place, you know. For some libraries, they may be fine free, but they do, if it's, you know, more expensive equipment, then they may want to still have fines on that. So and you usually don't want them to transit. I did once ship a ukulele that transited from Cambria. They generously shared one of their ukuleles with us. But in general, your ILL staff will be happier if you don't ask them to ship strangely shaped. So we set up the CERC policies for your location or your system, however you want to do them, so that they do, if there are things that you want to be able to move around, then great. Or if there are things that are not feasible to put in a delivery or in a shipping box, then it's better if they don't. So that's something that we do on an individual basis. We've been doing a lot of museum passes policies for museum passes recently as well. So if you have something and you want it to circulate differently than what you've got already, then let us know and we'll set you up.
There's a couple of other things in the chat too.
Oh, okay.
Like ideas.
Ooh. Oh, yeah, yeah. So yeah, the transit things, and then do you, if you're in an environment with like a shared card, do you want people who have different home libraries to be able to check them out if they come to your location, you know, kind of thing? Like there's some negotiation that can happen there. Oh, yes, locate call numbers. So this is something that is related to both shelving locations as well as call numbers and reports. So if you have a way to distinguish your library of things by call number. So sometimes people will call that, put them in with the other kits, their kits. So it starts with kit. There's what I'm missing start with things. Oh yes, I was like lot, but yes, library of things. That makes sense. Then they're going to be grouped together for reporting purposes. And so that's helpful. You can also then run your reports on either the shelving location or on call numbers if you want to get some kind of aggregate stats. That's what I was like, I was thinking a lot of paper like you purchased.
Well, so Heather just wrote that in the chat. You can shred a lot of paper.
But yes, library. So yeah, consistency is good. And going to be helpful, you know, make sure you're communicating with your desk staff too about where these things are in the library, especially if you're in a bigger library, where they're kept. I know at Altoona, there, at least when I was there were baking pans and they were in the cookbook section, but you have to know that. Because the call numbers were kit call numbers and not they didn't have the Dewey number. They weren't in 645 or whatever cookery is. So yes, that's a good one, Jonathan. Thank you.
I apologize if the honking is coming through. They're doing road construction outside of our building, and there's like a traffic jam and people are like honking at each other. It's a great timing.
That's always how it is. I had construction at my house a couple weeks ago. I can't hear it, but the other thing about shelving locations, and this is something that there's a great variety of at our different libraries, is that some libraries have very, very specific shelving locations down to the genre, or I've even seen custom shelving locations for a particular series so that they can kind of parcel them out. So we have some libraries that have only a couple of shelving locations. If I can pick on Lackawanna, they make heavy use of stacks. So there are advantages.
Very soon that will change.
Okay, I didn't know if we were allowed to talk about it or not. So if you do shelving locations, one of the things that you can do is to think about the different types of reporting that you're going to want to do and organize your shelving locations that way. So the way that I like to do it, and I could pull up a sample, but it's not super important. I like to try to start most of them with the age category, because you're going to have to report on that on the annual report. So if there's a way to have all of the shelving locations that you're going to want to pull out for the children's circulations, children's material circulations, if there's a way for those all to be grouped together in the list of shelving locations, it makes it really easy to select them as a chunk and just select those ones and only run the report on that. And then you can also easily, like if you have YA, then you can look at just YA materials. So I'm a big fan of that. It can get clunky. You can end up with some clunky names and long names. So there are different ways to do it. But in general, if you think about how am I going to want data on this, because shelving locations are really easy to report on, it can be very helpful to think about how you want to name them so that you can get easy reports. And so having, things like Library of Things as its own shelving locations means you can get one number for this number of circs from that location. So that's some people also like to organize it a bit more by type, to have the sort of the is it a book, is it an audio book kind of be the first word again, so that it sorts alphabetically nicely into those groupings. Cool. Other questions about shelving locations? Or
Nicole has a good shelving location project.
yeah, Nicole, will you tell us about what you guys are doing?
Yeah, higher.
Sure. So here at the Pike County Public Library at the Milford branch, we are currently going under construction to move our children's sections downstairs. So we wanted to make it as pretty and perfect as possible before everything gets moved down there. So it's been a lot of brainstorming about how we can make that space better for the patrons, mostly the children that come in looking for their dinosaur books, their mermaid books, and then parents that are also asking for books that are appropriate for their children's reading level. So after brainstorming as a team, we came up with the idea of breaking our picture books down into about 10 categories. We have dinosaurs, things that go, characters, kind of along that line of thinking. And then for our junior easy books, our chapter books, we decided to break those down into 5 levels. So we took a look at all the different publishers that the chapter books kind of come through, and they're all over the place with the assigned reading levels. So one could be a level 1, another book is listed as a level 1, but their levels are completely different. So we found one that we liked. We went with Penguin Random House's Step Into Reading, I think it's called, Explore the Steps.
Okay.
I've
Yeah.
got this kind of little chart that,
Yep.
yeah. So that lives at my desk. And we decided to go through all of our chapter books, the junior easy books, and they've all been assigned to a level that correlates with that chart. We then purchased stickers that match all of those levels. And
that's a lot of work.
It was a lot of work. We did it in very small stages, which made it really doable. We're a smaller, we have 2 branches, so our JEs are only about, it's around 1,800 items, but it was a lot of work. We had to touch all of them. So the stages, we started with just grabbing all the Step Into Reading books. And we went from level 1, then moved on to level 2, and so forth until we got to level 5. And then from there, anything that was left on the shelf, we would visually grab in chunks, the A's to the B's, and throughout the alphabet until we hit the end of it. And it's been really great. We've had a lot of parents that come in asking for suggestions. So the JEs were kind of more geared for the parents. What should my child be reading at this stage, at this grade level, this age level? And now we can just go right over to our sections and say, here's our chart. Let's look, here are the colors that correspond. Let's pick a book off the shelf, see if that works for you. Here's another red one that's a level 1. and it's been really smooth and easy, and it's, you know, you have more confidence in picking out a title from the section than just this huge wall of items.
Yeah.
So that's been a lot of fun to hear how beneficial it's been to the patrons.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a long project. We finally finished at both branches. So that's nice. Now I'm waiting for the trailing items that are still on the old shelving location. I just ran a report to see everything that was in there, and now I'm on hold for a lot of items to come back.
Have a lot of things showing up on your
Yes.
desk. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's gone really well. We can run reports if we want to know what levels are circulating more, or where we're lacking in another level. We can then purchase items to kind of fluff that section up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And then for the OPAC side, then they can search then either all of these at once, like they can select a bunch, or if they specifically want to see something in this level.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So here I see
all of our picture books. Yes. Yeah. So we did
as
animals.
A parent, I'm pretty jealous.
We personally love the picture books. It's the best when a kid comes in and they're like, oh, because all the picture books are stickered now. That took longer than the JEs for sure. But you know, they want their dinosaur book, and they know to come in and look for that dinosaur picture, because if you're reading the junior picture books, for the most part, they're not reading them. They can't read the titles. They don't care who the author is. They want their car book. You know, they want the book about Winnie the Pooh. So they kind of are now knowing where to look for that. So we're making the little guys happy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's really fabulous, Nicole.
Yeah, thank you. It was a huge team effort. We had all the staff was helping when they could. Volunteers helped us where they could as well with the stickering. But it looks really nice.
That's wonderful, because
really nice
I'm sitting here like, oh my gosh, that is so much work.
we had a goal to get it done in a year, and we did. It was manageable.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know when we talk with libraries about data projects, we're like, yeah, we can do all, you know, the shelving locations, the call numbers, we can do big batches, it'll be fine. And we're like, but you're on your own with the spine labels. Like, if I'm there, I'll help out for an hour, but that's not a significant chunk of time. So just to have, you know, volunteers and be organized and everything is awesome. I'm sure that felt really good the day that you were like, okay, substantial completion.
Yes, it did. With the JEs too, it did get a little frustrating after we got through all of the step into reading books and having to figure out where does this book kind of fall within that graph. So I leaned on a lot of my co-workers to see also what they would think. So that was a lot of help. And then I used a couple websites that were helpful with that as well. I used Accelerated Reader, Book Finder. They have a great website, kind of gives you their levels, the Lexile levels as well. They have their own Find a Book for an age range. So there are a lot of tools. And then I just created a Google Sheet of my own that I could keep referencing back, so that I was consistent in, okay, if this is how, what's another one? I can read their levels. I have my own guide to where they correlate with step into reading. So it's consistent as much as I can make it.
Yeah, like I've seen those where it's like, okay, if the Lexile is this, then it's, you know, step into reading 4 is I can read 3.
Yes.
Or, yeah.
Yes.
I will grab, if you want to either put some of those links in the chat or send them to me, then I can add them to the handout too.
Yeah.
And we do try to have, it's not going to be on the paper shredder. We do try to make sure that we have that accelerated reader or other reading level info. So this, I'm not familiar with the fallout levels, but that's one. And if you find that you're not seeing some of that data, I know we have done data projects in the past to try to make sure that we have good, yeah, so like the Lexile, the accelerated reader, as well as the age. It's nice when we already have that in the catalog, so that you can use that as one of the tools to be able to sort of see where it is. I know that some of our libraries have done a similar project where they're not changing the shelving location or the call number, but they are using the lists feature, either the evergreen lists or the chili pack lists, to create, you know, lists of titles that are in, you know, these Lexile levels or these accelerated reader levels. And then you can, because you can link to those, then they can have a page on their website where it says, you know, if you're looking for books at this Lexile level, here's a list. So that's another way to do it if you want to give people some of that info without trying to reorganize anything. And you could do carousels that way too if you wanted to. But you all, because you have them as shelving locations, can do like new stuff in these shelving locations, which is nice too. Mm-hmm. Yay. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. That is a great project. And I know that we're embarking on a similar, if somewhat less focused, as Victoria mentioned, for the Lackawanna County Libraries, getting their shelving locations to be a little bit more specific, to help both with reporting, but also with just physical findability, like where is it in the building kind of thing. So I think that, you know, this is one way to do it. Even if you do it more generally, kind of spiffing those up and making sure that they're consistent with how your library is organized now. You know, if you have graphic novels pulled out of YA or not pulled out of YA, having the catalog be consistent with how you find it in the library can be really helpful for patrons. Yay. Does anybody else do anything neat with their shelving locations or have questions or ideas that they'd like to share before we move on to another topic?
Harry Foster mentioned that they use the call number field for the categories for picture books.
Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah, that would make sense. So how do you do, is it like easy dinosaurs, or like how do you do? I'm just curious. I can go. I think Terry's at Myersdale.
I know at Collinsville we use a Glade system in which we have all of the easy readers similar to that, but they're broken down by subjects. Like Disney, we'll have like all of the Disney characters in one bin, and we have them in bins. So if someone was looking for I think it's Brave, so they would look for Brave and then Disney, and then we have a bin that has all of the easy readers in, and they would find it. And the kids love it because they know, because we have like travel and we have heroes and we have Legos, so they're able to look for that thing that they like, and then the parents can help to gauge what level they are on and slip in those harder ones as they go, because they of course like to read the same ones over and over again. But that too is a great deal of work, so I totally appreciate the fun that you have when you're putting all of that together.
Friends, I spelled dinosaurs wrong. Yeah, thank you, Lucille. That is cool. I feel like the children's section is something that almost every library does a little bit differently. And I think that's a really cool thing. Yep, so you can see how they have their dinosaurs. Neat. Thank you both for sharing. Elizabeth, did you have one you wanted to add?
Oh, no, I think you got the ones that I was thinking of.
Oh, okay. And so at Myersdale, so all these then dinosaurs ones would be together. And so, yeah, similarly to what Lucille was saying. Oh, okay. Yeah. So I've seen it. And I think this was what kind of part of what Lucille was saying is like you use Disney to like the call number to group everything together. But if you do it the way that Myersdale does it, then you have kind of like two tiers. So you have the dinosaurs group and then you have the author within that. So yeah, similarly to how you would do it with the shelving location, but then it's right there in the call number too, which is cool. Can be helpful for staff. One of the things that I've found is that if you don't do a massive stickering campaign like Nicole's library did, then it can be hard for staff to visually identify where it needs to go. So I'm gonna pick on my personal home library of Hollidaysburg, is that they at one time had the Caldecott and other award winners. They had a copy that was shelved regularly and a copy that went on a Caldecott shelf. And so it was hard to know which, like the one that you had in your hand, like where it was supposed to go. So because you're not seeing the shelving location, you're just seeing what's on the book. So yeah, using like the spine label to make it part of the call number, as well as using those super fun the various like topical stickers. Now I want a roll of dinosaur stickers for my desk. So yeah, lots of ways to do that. Cool. Okay. Let's see. Heather, was there something specific that we asked you to talk about, Heather, or just in general?
No, I think it was just in general because I did that project with the young adult graphics.
Oh, yeah, that's cool. Would you tell us a little bit about that? This was Heather's graduate school capstone project. So.
Heather was looking for a capstone project. And I also order for the young adult section in this library. And when I worked at the desk, there was, with patrons, a lot of confusion. There were some patrons who were like really focused on manga and knew exactly which authors did which series, and it was like their thing. But the vast majority of the patrons in Altoona don't know that. They know a series name and they don't necessarily know an author's last name. And so originally all of our manga was shelved by Dewey and was like in the section with all of the young adult nonfiction. So I decided to, after thinking about it and talking about it with the director here, pull all of the manga and the graphic novel / few comics that we had out of Dewey, give them their own section in that same area, like shuffle stuff around and give them their own section. So they're now all shelved under the young adult graphic shelving location. And then for the manga specifically, we pulled it completely out of Dewey and gave the call number is YAG for young adult graphic, the first 3 letters of the series title, and then the number in the series, because that's how people were looking for it. And so we reshelved it all alphabetically by series title, because that was far easier for our manga patrons to find it. And we have since, Katie, gotten a lot of good feedback on the way it was redone.
Oh, good. Yeah, I bet.
And then for the other graphic stuff, like graphic novels and the few comics we had, we, instead of taking those decimal numbers out like 5 spaces, which none of our patrons cared about. And it made it way more difficult for our staff to shelve and for patrons to find them. We just made them, what is it, 741.5? Like period, 741.5.
Yeah.
That's what they are. They're shelved in their own section back there, so that they're much easier to put away and they're much easier to find.
So previously, this is something that would have been YA
And then like
741.5.
741.57 for 11 billion 82. Yeah, it was like,
And then HOR,
yes.
you
correct,
know,
for
so
the
it
author,
requires
yeah.
you to, you know, kind of do some detective work. Well,
Yeah.
this is much more consistent with how people are going to be. They want My Hero Academia. That's what they want.
And it's way easier to shelve too.
Mm-hmm.
It's, the staff has even commented how much quicker it is for them to shelve that stuff now, which is nice.
Yeah, and to find it too, like
Yeah.
helping a patron find something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we put up like nice signage back there that says young adult graphic, and talked about it with our patrons as the project was happening, and then also after the fact, you know, just for the first couple of months after, reminding our teen patrons and our other patrons that we knew frequented those sections how it had changed. And yeah.
So Elizabeth is wondering, did you guys do this with do you have an adult graphic
Okay,
novel?
so this is
Yeah.
a very sore subject for me, Elizabeth. In Blair County, only kids read graphic novels and comics. Like, adults don't read comics. Are you kidding me? They're
What?
kids. So we don't have an adult nice graphic section because we don't order that stuff. I don't even order comic series for YA because it's too contentious here, unfortunately. So the answer would be, I think now that Rachel is over the adult part, that if we did have an adult graphic section, we would do something similar. I would bet, but right now our adult graphic section is Garfield comics.
I think there's some Far Side. Yeah.
Yeah, like the old ones that were in the newspaper years ago.
Mhm.
It's a very sore subject for me personally. So,
And do you all do
a lot of
parts?
comics, so
Do you use monograph parts? I guess I could.
no.
Okay.
I don't know. No.
Yeah.
No, we
So
don't.
how do you know, like, so if I requested My Hero Academia and I only want number 4, how do you?
That's exactly how you would search for it. Like, we have it in there. It has its own thing. Does that make sense? Like, it has its own, I'm assuming it has its own holding.
Well,
But it's listed right-
this one has a bunch of them together.
Sorry, I don't mean to rock the boat.
No,
but
that's
I-
okay. That's okay, because I'm not the cataloger here. So like,
So they do. Yeah, I don't remember how they handle it at the desk.
well, but when you hold on. I should have had these answers before it's okay, it's fine.
And Lucille, they do something pretty similar with their juvenile series, which is that it's in its own location, juvenile graphic novels. And then they have, for the juvenile ones, they have both fiction ones where it's either the name of the author or the name of the series, and then they have the nonfiction ones too, like the science comics ones. So those are all together in the juvenile graphic section. Oh, nice, Terry, that makes sense. Yeah. It can be, especially I think the manga can be really confusing because the series is kind of like intersect and overlap sometimes. And if you're familiar with it, then it makes sense to you. But if you're just trying to figure out where it goes on the shelf, it can be difficult.
What we did at LCLS was we also started going by series and the volume number versus using the author, because things were getting shelved all over the place. So now all the mangas are shelved together like within their series. So like all the Naruto, like 1 to 72 has its own spot and its own call number, and it makes things so much easier than trying to use the authors.
Mm-hmm.
So in answer to your question, Elizabeth, I'm assuming because of we didn't like when I re-cataloged all these, I literally just left them. I left them the way they were cataloged and then just changed their shelving location and their call number. So I'm going to assume if it's something we have, we put an actual like item hold on it. I'm going to assume for our patrons. If it's something we don't have, obviously we can request it from other libraries a different way. But I'm
Yeah.
assuming that's
It'd be if the patron put a hold on an OPAC,
right. Yeah.
you might.
And I don't know because I have not ever had any complaints. Like we have not ever had any complaints about that. So I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And it's not something
Yeah.
about, so
This
I'm
is
not, yeah.
They always say if you want to start a fight with catalogers, you ask them about, or it's not start a fight. It's like if you want to hear people talk about cataloging for hours and hours, ask them what they do with graphic novels, because
Right.
there's not like.
So I feel like just from the standpoint of someone who reads a lot of that, publishers for graphic novels, well, for comic books specifically, don't make it easy in the first place for a normal person to even find them or buy them, because they will have like so many issues wrapped into one volume. And then like a special comes out and they completely change the volume that the original ones were in and republish it in a new format with a new volume with a new cover. And then they might change that later. So they already make it impossible for librarians to deal with in the first place on the publishing end.
Then you got to throw in a new 52 in there too.
Yes. Yes. So like it's a whole thing with comics anyway. Yeah.
I'll make it easy for us. But it is definitely, as you can see people saying in the chat, it's definitely a growth era in terms of what people have. And I think that it's an area where I had a conversation with my own brother about a year ago where he was like, did you know libraries have graphic novels? And I was like, yeah. I did know that.
We also have cake pans and paper shredders and flipping.
Yeah.
Like I'm just saying.
And his was because he ordered a used copy and it was a library discard, and he was like, oh, this library had this, so I think it's definitely an area like Library of Things where people don't always realize that we may have them. And so I do want to kind of define some of the terms we used here. So there's a function in Evergreen called monograph parts that will allow you to have one record. And then when someone places a hold on it, it'll allow them to select which part they want. It has some disadvantages in like resource sharing arrangements, because if you're not all using the same part setup, it can be difficult. We don't recommend that people do this for DVDs because it gets pretty confusing pretty fast, but it can work well for these type of serials of kind of sets like this. So if people are interested in that, that's something that we can set up. But I will also say, as Mary notes, and as they try to do it at Altoona, that having a one record for each item helps often for discovery, especially if it's something where, like, I'm thinking about Dog Man is in the juvenile graphic novels, right? Where people may be looking for 22 Fleas Under the Sea or whatever the new one is, as opposed to searching by the series. So, there's advantages to doing it both ways. And if it's something that your library wants to like improve the consistency of how you do it, because I think it's one of those things where there isn't necessarily a right and a wrong, but if your location is consistent in how you have them done, just like with the Library of Things, it helps staff, it helps patrons, it helps discovery, because it's once you've figured it out once, then you've got to figure it out. Yeah, and many ILSs have different ways, and monograph parts is not an evergreen only term. It's something that it's often I think of it as being more of an academic term when you think about journals, you know, the way that journals are released in issues and then volumes. But yeah, it's available in many ILSs, and we have a number of libraries that either came in using it or have started using it since they came to Spark. And many libraries that don't want to have to mess with it, so they put everything on a separate record, and both are good solutions. Thank you, Heather, for talking about that. I think that's a cool project and something to think about too for any of us who have people on staff who are in master's programs, or people we know in our communities who are in kind of you know, library school kind of stuff. That there's always projects. There's always stuff to be done. Okay. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I want. Oh, thank you. Don't forget to do the trivia. We've had 2 out of 3 weeks of winners, right, Kat? What's this week's prize?
This week's prize is I knew it 2 seconds ago. Hold on.
It's okay.
I knew it. The Epson Small-in-One inkjet printer.
Ooh. Something else that we don't have an implementation anywhere in Spark right now, but that I heard mentioned recently, and I thought it was cool, is shelving locations groups. So in Noble, what they have is that for libraries, they've got both the branches, and then they have these shelving location groups that let you search all the adult collections at all of the branches of this particular library or system. And then for the standalone ones, they just have those. So that's kind of a neat thing that we can help libraries set up if they're interested, to be able to group those shelving locations together. So especially if you are, you know, like in Pike, you now have a bunch of JUV shelving locations. So you can make a group that puts them all together, that allows staff and patrons to then search everything in that collection, as opposed to, you can do it, you can select them in the advanced search, but it kind of moves it, you know, out to this library selector, and gives you a sort of a different way to look at things. So I thought that was cool. And we could talk about, if anybody wants to see item tags, we could look at item tags. And I do want to remind you that if you either want to have custom images like they do, like you saw for Jonathan's in Wyomissing, for any of your items, or if you want to correct a bad image, we can do it for you, and we can show you how to do it yourself. Because Chili Pack's cover art uploader is pretty easy to use. And I think Kat's got good instructions and videos and stuff. So if it's something that you're interested in, whether it's local history or library of things, you know, whether you're taking your own images or you're getting them from somewhere else, that is definitely something that we know how important that visual aspect is to our patrons, right? They want to know what it looks like. So just kind of a reminder there that that's available. Okay. Questions? Nicole, Victoria, Heather, Kat, Elizabeth, was there anything that we wanted to hit on that I haven't mentioned yet? Yes, in the if you do want to do images, there is some copyright legalese to be dealt with. If you're taking your own images, I believe that you're okay there, but we could talk about it if it's something that you have a collection of that you want to make sure that you're following all the rules. And then I believe that there are a variety of sources of images that are already approved for this type of use. So that's Terry, if you have any particular ones that you're concerned about because of where they came from, you can let us know and we can look into it or see if we can find them from a non-copyrighted source. Yeah, so images automatically get added. When you add an image, ChiliPack is going to look based on the ISBN or the UPC and try to match that to an image in their database. Every once in a while, it's wrong. And you'll see them on OCLC sometimes that OCLC has the wrong photo. But they'll try to match it based on those identifiers. However, if it's something that isn't in the database, say it's a locally published item, it's a local history item, it's a paper shredder, then those are probably not going to be in the database. So we have a way to add those. I usually recommend that people, when they catalog something, it will usually show up right away. Obviously, if you're using an existing record, you can see whether or not it's there. And then if you're bringing a record in through Z3950, it typically shows up right away. I usually ask people to wait 24 hours because there are some overnight things that happen to pull new images into the database. But yeah, I'm talking about for ones where that doesn't happen for a variety of reasons. Okay, I asked if anyone had questions. And then I did not pause to listen to see if anyone wanted to have questions or add any topics that I had forgotten to talk about. Okay, I had my mandatory 5 seconds of silence. So yeah, if there are ones that you don't see images for, feel free to put in a ticket and we can either do it for you or show you how to do it or help you navigate any relevant copyright stuff. Oh, yep. And Kat shared that the Spark support page, which is perfect. And there's a bunch of we make you a login to the ChiliPack admin site, and then there's documentation on there as well. And I will send out my slides as well as these notes so far with a couple more things added in that we talked about today. Go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Thank you so much to Victoria and Nicole and Heather for hanging out with us and showing us awesome things that you are doing at your library. We are always looking for library spotlights to do in Kat's monthly newsletters. So if you're doing a cool project, even if it's not ILS related, feel free to let us know about it because we love to know about those things because we're librarians, and also to be able to feature them as well. And don't forget to do the trivia. Thank you all for joining us. I appreciate it so much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll hang out a little bit if anybody wants to chat in lieu of hanging out in a meeting room since we're not physically together in the same space. Thank you all.